Good morning to one and all. Today we are celebrating the 461st birthday of William Shakespeare in our campus. William Shakespeare was one of the most prominent dramatists and poets of the Elizabethan era. He began his career as an actor, later he became a dramatist and eventually gained fame as a poet. Shakespeare wrote 38 plays, 154 sonnets and 2 long narrative poems. His works explore a wide range of genres including history, comedy, tragedy, and tragic comedy. Shakespeare was born on 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon. At the age of 18, William Shakespeare married 26-year-old Anna Hathaway in 1582. After his marriage, he began a successful career in London as an actor, writer, and part owner of a playing company called the Lord Chamberlain Men, later known as the King's Men. He produced most of his works between 1589 and 1613. Until about 1608, he wrote mainly tragedies, among them H.O.K.M., Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, all considered to be among the finest works of English language. Shakespeare died on 23rd April 1616. To honoring this date, UNESCO established 23rd April as the International Day of the Book. Shakespeare's early works often focused on historical kings and political power, as seen in many plays like Richard II, Henry VI, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, and Henry VIII. These plays not only entertained but also explored the complexities of leadership, honor, and legitimacy. Shakespeare comedies such as A Midsummer's Night Dream, Twelfth Night, As You Like It, Much Ado About Nothing, The Taming of the Shrew, Love Labour's Lost, The Comedy of Errors, The Merchant of Venice. These comedies are very popular in the Elizabethan age. These plays more focus on wit, mistaken identities, and themes of love and reconciliation. Shakespeare's tragedies are Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, Antony and Cleopatra, Timaeus of Athens, Cornelius, Titus Andronicus, Julius Caesar, Troilus and Crusade, and the Two Noble Kinship are often considered the pinnacle of his artistic achievement. These plays explore profound human emotions and dilemmas such as ambition, revenge, betrayal, madness, and fate. He also wrote 2 famous narrative poems, Venus and Adonis, and The Rape of Lucrece, which displays his poetic brilliance and imaginative storytelling. Shakespeare received so many critical comments from other critics. Robert Greene, a Cambridge critic, once scornfully referred to Shakespeare as an abstract crow beautified with our feathers, highlighting how Shakespeare, though not university educated, surpassed many scholars of his time in literary greatness. Shakespeare earned the enduring titles of the national poet and the bard of Avon and the father of English drama. He was known for captivating audience with his plays, often performing at the Globe Theatre, which he helped finance and build in 1599 along with his acting company, the Lord Chamberlain Men. The Globe was located on the south bank of the River Thames in London and became one of the most iconic theatres of the English Renaissance. It could accommodate around 3,000 audience, ranging from the nobility seated to private boxes to the groundlings, who stood in the open yard for a penny. Performances were held in daylight, without artificial lighting or elaborate sensory, relying instead on rich language, compelling characters, and skilled acting to draw in the audience. Shakespeare's mastery of suspense and dramatic tension means that many of his plays unfold over several acts across multiple days, often building anticipation before revealing their final resolutions. The immersive experience of theatre at the Globe helped make his works accessible and popular among people for all walks of life, solidifying his reputation as a playwright who could speak to every stratum of society. After his death on 1616, William Shakespeare has been celebrated and critiqued by countless writers, poets, philosophers, and literary critics, making his influence one of the most enduring in the history of literature. One of his contemporaries, Ben Jonson, wrote in the preface to the first folio of Shakespeare's collected works, published in 1623, he quoted that he was not of an age, but for all time. In his poem To the Memory of My Beloved the Author, Mr. William Shakespeare, this line has since become one of the most iconic tributes to Shakespeare's timeless genius. In his second folio, the great poet John Milton, author of Paradise Lost, paid his respects by suggesting that Shakespeare's genius required no grand monument. Milton believed that the playwright's words were a living monument, capable of stirring the soul and lifting the imagination. What needs my Shakespeare for his honored bones, the labor of an age in piled stones? After John Milton, Shakespeare received a negative comment on Midsummer's Night Dream by Pepys. The diarist Samuel Pepys, in his entry titled September 29, 1662, attended a performance of A Midsummer's Night Dream and called it the most insipid, ridiculous play that ever I saw in my life. However, such criticism has often been overshadowed by widespread admiration. And another important critic, John Dryden, in his essay of dramatic poesy, praised Shakespeare as the man who, of all modern and perhaps ancient poets, had the largest and most comprehensive soul. In contrast, Thomas Rhymer, a critic in the late 17th century, attacked on Othello as the moral shore of this fable. Othello is very instructive. In the early 18th century, Joseph Addison, writing in The Spectator, declared Shakespeare as among the English, Shakespeare has incomparably excelled all others. Another literary critic after Joseph Addison, Alexander Pope, he wrote about Shakespeare in his preface to Pope's edition of Shakespeare. His characters are so much nature herself that 'tis a sort of injury to call them by so distant a name of copies of her. Samuel Johnson, one of the most important influential literary critics of the 18th century, praised Shakespeare in his Plays of William Shakespeare. He wrote in it, "The work of a correct and regular writer is a garden accurately formed and diligently planted, varied with shades, and scented with flowers. The composition of Shakespeare is a forest." In the Romantic era, Jonathan Wolfgang Goethe, he wrote about Hamlet. Prince Hamlet is suddenly facing the need for a great action imposed upon your soul that is unable to do it. Thomas De Quincey, another literary critic, he is quoting on his work on the knocking at the gate in Macbeth. De Quincey quote, "One might poet thy work are not as those of other men, simply and merely great works of art, but are also like the phenomena of nature." And another literary critic, Victor Hugo, in his work he is quoting that, "It is a long silence before the sun's answer. I'll translate Shakespeare, Shakespeare the ocean." Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy, in his work Tolstoy on Shakespeare, "I remember the astonishment I felt when I first read Shakespeare. I expected to receive a powerful aesthetic pleasure, but having read one of the other works regarded as his best, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Macbeth, not only did I feel no delight, but I feel an irresistible repulsion and tedium." French literary psychologist Sigmund Freud said in his work Moses of Monasticism, he wrote, "Incidentally, in this meantime, I stopped to believe that the author of Shakespeare's work were the man of Stratford." W. H. Auden, one of the modern dramatists, in his lectures on Shakespeare, he said, "I find Shakespeare particularly appealing in his attitude towards his work. Shakespeare never takes himself too seriously." Another modern literary American critic, T.S. Eliot, quoted that Dante and Shakespeare divided the modern world between them, there is no third. And Eliot wrote in his Hamlet and his problem in the Sacredhood essay on the poetry and criticism, he wrote, "We must simply admit that here Shakespeare tackled a problem which proved too much for him. We should have to understand things which Shakespeare did not understand himself." Post-structuralist critic like Jacques Derrida in his essay Plato's Pharmacy engaged with Shakespeare's work. Derrida quoted that Shakespeare's plays, like all texts, reveal the absence at the heart of language, implying that meaning is always deferred and never fully present. After Jacques Derrida, Harlod Bloom, in his work The Western Canon, he praised Shakespeare. Shakespeare is the canon. He sets the standard and the limits of literature. As we mark the 461st birthday of William Shakespeare, the enduring legacy of the Bird of Avon remains as powerful and profound as ever. For the wooden stage of the Globe Theatre to classrooms, libraries, and theatres across the world, Shakespeare's world continued to captivate, challenge, and inspire. His works transcended time, geography, and ideology, bridging centuries through the timeless relevance of human experience. Shakespeare's critical reception has evolved across ages, praised by contemporaries like Ben Jonson and John Dryden, reimagining by romantic thinkers like John Goethe, Carlyle, challenged by modern thinkers such as T.S. Eliot and Tolstoy, and deeply examined by psychoanalytic and post-structuralist theorists like Freud, Derrida, and Deman. Each era has found in Shakespeare not just a playwright, but a mirror of its own anxieties, aspirations, and philosophical debates. In celebrating Shakespeare today, we do more than remember as a poet. We honor a cultural and intellectual force that shaped literature and thought. His unparalleled ability to probe the depths of human condition, to make us laugh, weep, question, and reflect, ensures that his legacy will not merely endure but thrive. With this, I am concluding my presentation. Thank you, one and all.